Good afternoon, good evening, friends. Apologies for making you wait this long. The Honourable Minister is with us to announce the decisions taken earlier this evening in the meetings of the Cabinet, the CCEA and the CCI. I'd request you to check that your cell phones are switched off or are in the silent mode before we begin. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm sorry that the meetings took longer than we expected. It was a very heavy agenda, but thank you for staying back. Now, first, the Cabinet decisions. The Cabinet approved the declaration of 5 airports as international airports. At Lucknow, the Chaudhry Charan Singh Airport. At Varanasi, the Lal Bahadur Shastri Airport. At Tiruchirappalli, at Mangalore, and at Coimbatore. These airports have all the infrastructure to receive international flights. In fact, some flights are already operating. Immigration, customs facilities have been provided. By declaring them as international airports, we expect that there will be more international traffic and more international flights flying into and flying out of these airports. ...200 square meters of land at Farakka is being transferred to the Government of West Bengal to be subsequently handed over to the Government of Jharkhand for construction of a sump house and residential facility at Pakur town to be constructed by the Nagar Panchayat Pakur. Now, this comes to the Cabinet because no government land can be transferred without Cabinet approval. Cabinet has approved the revision of rates of risk allowance, hospital patient care allowance, and patient care allowance payable to about 2 lakh entitled central government employees. This will mean that the existing rates will be doubled. The proposed revision in the rates of risk allowance, hospital patient care allowance, and patient care allowance will provide succor to the employees at risk due to the nature of their duties. Now, the alternatives that were thought of, risk insurance schemes and packages, did not work out, and doubling the allowances while meeting the requirements of those exposed to risk is also expected to result in financial savings compared to the alternative schemes that were being looked at. The financial implication of doubling the allowances would be rupees 42.16 crore per annum. And whenever the dearness allowance is increased by 50%, the allowances that I mentioned above, risk allowance, patient care allowance, and hospital patient care allowance, will be automatically increased by 25%. Cabinet approved the constitution of the 20th Law Commission for a period of 3 years from 1/9/2012 to 31/8/2015. It will have a full-time chairperson, 4 full-time members, including the member secretary, 5 part-time members, and 2 ex officio members. The Law Commission is a non-statutory body. It was originally constituted in 1955 and is reconstituted every 3 years. The last reconstitution was in 2009. That ended on 31st August 2012. Cabinet approved the ratification of the Nagoya Protocol on access and benefit sharing by India. The Nagoya Protocol, as you know, has been signed by 92 countries. India signed it on the 11th of May 2011. Under this protocol, there is access and there's benefit sharing, both monetary and non-monetary. We have decided to ratify the protocol that we signed on the 11th of May. It's an important decisive step because, as you know, India is the incoming president of COP11. COP11 begins on October 8th, and therefore we have ratified it today, and this will be seen as an important step by the rest of the world. India is one of the identified mega-diverse countries rich in biodiversity. India accounts for 7 to 8% of the recorded species of the world. India is also rich in associated traditional medicines, knowledge, including medicines such as Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, etc. There also exists in India a very rich oral, undocumented tradition. The genetic resources and associated traditional knowledge can be used to develop a wide range of products and services benefiting humankind, such as medicines, agricultural practices, cosmetics, etc. Much of the world's biodiversity is found in developing countries. Therefore, our signing the protocol on access and benefit sharing is expected to bring us rich dividends and rewards. India has been a victim of misappropriation or biopiracy of our genetic resources and associated knowledge. Signing the protocol means that a key missing pillar will be now in place. There is a more detailed press note. You can refer to that. Cabinet approved the official amendments to the Insurance Laws Amendment Bill 2008. This bill was introduced in 2008. It was referred to the Standing Committee. The Standing Committee has made a number of recommendations. We have accepted those recommendations and the official amendments are being moved. I must, however, point out that in one recommendation, the Standing Committee recommended that we retain the FDI cap as 26%. We think that the FDI cap should be raised to 49%. You heard the IRDA chairman's statement over the last 2 days, where the regulator, the IRDA, has categorically stated that insurance requires huge capital, and that capital will only come if we are able to raise the FDI limit to 49%. He's strongly supported in increasing the FDI limit to 49%. I have already included the insurance bill in the list handed over by me to the two leaders of the opposition. I've asked them to consult with their colleagues and support the bill. We will continue to engage all political parties in Parliament to get this bill passed. The bulk of the official amendments reflect the Standing Committee's recommendations, which have been accepted by the government. There is a detailed press note on the official amendments, and I suggest you read the press note because there are a number of official amendments being made, but I thought I should specifically mention the amendment relating to FDI in insurance. However, I may make it clear that the public sector insurance companies will adopt the policy of the government and they will remain public sector insurance companies. The benefit of this amendment will go to the private sector insurance companies where there is a private sector Indian player and a private sector investor, and they require a huge amount of capital, and that capital will be facilitated by the increase in the FDI limit from 26% to 49%, subject, of course, to Parliament approving the same. Cabinet also approved the official amendments to the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority Bill. There were 5 key recommendations made by the Standing Committee. All 5 have been accepted. So we hope that this bill also will be passed in the ensuing session of Parliament. There is a detailed press note which lists these amendments, and I request that you refer to the detailed press note. FDI limit in pension will follow the FDI limit in insurance. Whatever the insurance bills ultimately says will be the FDI limit for the pension bill also. If the insurance bill passes with 49%, the pension also will be 49%. On what?
On S4 returns.
No. There is an amendment. There is an amendment dealing with minimum assured returns, and an amendment has been made where one scheme will provide a minimum assured return. So I suggest you read the detailed press note. What?
Is it FDI plus FII? Are there separate caps for them?
No, this is the foreign equity cap. This is the foreign equity cap, is 49%. Cabinet also approved the proposed amendments to the Competition Act. Now, the Competition Act has been in the making for quite some time. It was referred to a group of ministers, and then it has now come back. We are introducing the amendments to the Competition Act. The basic structure of the Competition Act remains. Some crucial amendments are being made with particular reference to the jurisdiction of sectoral regulators on competition-related issues. Under the amendment, no sector is exempt from the Competition Act. All sectors will be within the jurisdiction of the Competition Commission insofar as anti-competitive practices are concerned. But the Act enables exemption to certain specific cases. For example, merger of 2 banks, where one bank is a failing bank, and the RBI as a regulator says that this bank has to be saved, and therefore there's an involuntary amalgamation of that bank with another bank. Now, that can be exempted from the Competition Commission. Similarly, in some sectors, during the infancy period, during the nascent period when the sector is growing, for a period of time, exemption can be granted from the Competition Commission. There is already a provision of the Competition Act for granting exemption. That provision remains, but the broad principle is all sectors are now within the jurisdiction of the Competition Commission. They may have independent sectoral regulators. The sectoral regulators will regulate on all other aspects, but in respect of anti-competitive practices and applying the principle of competition, the Competition Commission will have jurisdiction over all sectors.
Coming back to banking.
No, we can't go back now. It's already, I've got to cover a lot of ground. And anyway, banking was not on the agenda today. Next is the Companies Bill. We have approved the amendments to the Companies Bill. This again has been in the making for quite some time. The new Companies Bill was introduced in 2011. It replaces the 1956 Companies Act. It's a very elaborate exercise, and I suggest that you read the press note. It's a very important bill. It's a bill designed for the 21st century. It's a bill that takes note of the explosion in the numbers of companies in India and their reach and range. Therefore, the old bill is outdated. So we have now got a new Companies Bill. We sincerely hope that this will find its way to passage as early as possible. official amendments are being moved as approved by Cabinet to the Forward Contracts Regulation Amendment Bill. The Forward Market Commission, which is a regulator, will get autonomy and power to regulate the market effectively. New products like options will be allowed in the commodity market. This will benefit various stakeholders, including farmers, to take benefit of price discovery and price risk management. The bill will enhance public accountability of the regulator because we are providing for an appellate authority against the decisions of the regulator. This went to the Standing Committee. Standing Committee made a number of recommendations. These recommendations have been by and large accepted, and official amendments will be introduced to reflect these decisions. Cabinet approved the amendments to the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. The Wildlife Protection Act 1972 provides the legal framework for the protection of various species of wild animals, management of their habitat, and also for regulation and control of trade in the products derived from wild animals. The Act has been amended from time to time, but a need was felt to amend the Act further to reflect the current requirements. As you're aware, we have to bring our acts in conformity with the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, what is called CITES, C-I-T-E-S. Ministry of Panchayat Raj had some suggestions. They have been incorporated. The Gram Sabha and the Gram Panchayat in scheduled areas will be involved in the administration of the Act. The amendments proposed define Gram Sabha, Panchayat, and scheduled area, and they provide for consultation with the Gram Sabha whenever an area is to be declared as a sanctuary. Consultation with Gram Sabha is mandatory. Representatives of Panchayat or tribal community have been included in the Community Reserve Management Committee. I think it's a progressive step that will ensure greater protection for wildlife, better management of habitats and sanctuaries, and a role for the Gram Sabha in the declaration and management of habitats and sanctuaries. Cabinet approved the amendments to the Employment Exchanges Compulsory Notification of Vacancies Act. Now, this Act has been observed more in the breach than in the observance. The Act is being renamed. The employment exchanges are being renamed as Employment Guidance and Promotion Centers. The focus now will be on vocational guidance and career counseling, apart from registration, submission, and placement. Any establishment in the private sector employing between 10 to 24 persons are now being brought under the Act. Earlier it was above 24. This is likely to result in a more realistic estimate of employment in the organized sector. The employer will now be mandated to furnish information relating to the result of selection against vacancies notified within 30 days from the date of selection. The penalties have also been enhanced in order to ensure that the Act has some teeth. The Cabinet also discussed the draft 12th five-year plan document, 2012-2017, and approved the draft and has directed that the draft be now placed before the National Development Council. As you're aware, the document adopts an average growth rate of 8.2% for the plan period. It It's an ambitious plan. It estimates resources at an ambitious level and hopes to expand the interventions in critical areas like health, education, sanitation, drinking water, etc. The projected average rate of gross domestic capital formation in the 12th plan is 37% of GDP. The projected gross domestic savings rate is 34.2% of GDP, and the net external financing needed for macroeconomic balance has been placed at 2.9% of GDP. The plan emphasizes the need to speed up the pace of implementation of infrastructure projects and remove supply bottlenecks. The plan emphasizes a broad definition of inclusiveness, which encompasses a spread of benefits to the weaker sections, including the SCs, STs, OBCs, minorities. The plan contains ambitious programs in health, education, water resource management, infrastructure development, and a number of programs aimed at inclusiveness. The plan lays emphasis on better delivery using the Aadhaar platform. And I expect the Deputy Chairman will take a separate media briefing later.
Sir, what is the status of the...
Just a minute, please.
Wait a minute. Yeah. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs approved the request of the Government of West Bengal to withdraw from the Haldia PCPIR. State Government of Bengal wrote to us on 8 February 2012 that they have decided to develop an industrial park, a power plant, and an eco-tourism park in the Nayachar Island in Haldia, West Medinipur district, and therefore it will not be possible for them to develop the PCPIR. We have accepted the request of the state government, and the PCPIR project is now stands withdrawn. Cabinet approved the payment of rupees 130 crore to ITI, which is a Sikh company, for payment of salary. The matter is before the BIFR. The last hearing in the BIFR was on a date in June 2012, and the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology has assured us that they will go through the BIFR process quickly and come up with a rehabilitation scheme. But in the meanwhile, we cannot deprive the workers of their salary, and therefore we have agreed to provide a grant of 130 crore to ITI for payment of salary. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has approved the implementation of the ICDS System Strengthening and Nutrition Improvement Project. Now this is called ISSNIP, ICDS System Strengthening and Nutrition Improvement Project. It is supported by the financial assistance of the World Bank. There's an IDA loan here. ISNIP has been designed to supplement and provide value addition to the existing ICDS program. Select districts, states will be allowed to experiment, innovate, and conduct pilots of potentially more effective approaches for ICDS. The aim is early childhood education and nutrition outcomes. The additional support is catalytic and is expected to catalyze the program to become more efficient. 4 major components are: 1, institutional and system strengthening in ICDS; 2, community mobilization and behavior change communication; 3, piloting multi-sectoral nutrition actions; and 4, project management, technical assistance, and monitoring and evaluation. The size of the project is 2,893 crore over a period of 7 years. IDA will take the bulk of the funding. 2,025 crore comes from IDA. The project will be implemented in 162 districts, having a high proportion of malnourished children in 8 states. These states are Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, and Andhra Pradesh. Some urban pilots will also be run in the NCR of Delhi. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs approved the extension of the scheme for subsidized distribution of imported pulses through the public distribution system. As you're aware, a certain quantity of pulses are imported, given to the states to be distributed to families under the PDS. There was a subsidy of 10 rupees per kg. The subsidy now will be raised to 20 rupees per kg, and the states will distribute through the PDS to BPL card holders. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs approved the continuation of the scheme for distribution of subsidized imported edible oil through the states and UTs. This is an ongoing scheme. States are encouraged to enter into contracts with public sector enterprises like MMTC, STC, etc., to import edible oil and to distribute it through the PDS. This scheme is being continued. There is a subsidy of 15 rupees per kg for every 15 rupees per kg imported and distributed through the PDS. The limit is, of course, 10 lakh tons of edible oils. At the same time, the ban on export of edible oils continues, with some exceptions carved out. Coconut oil, fish oil are being exempted. We are also allowing export up to 20,000 tons of branded consumer packs of edible oil of up to 5 kgs. Now, this is because there is an Indian diaspora all over the world, mainly in the Middle East. They look to edible oils packaged from India for their use, and therefore 20,000 metric tons can be exported in branded 5 kg package. Except for this exemption, export of edible oils will remain banned because we are short on edible oils. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs approved the end-to-end computerization of the targeted PDS operations under the 12th plan. Now, phase 1 of this will be digitization. Digitization of the beneficiary database is the first phase. Digitization of beneficiary database will help in weeding out bogus ration cards and better targeting of subsidies. Then it will move on to computerization of the supply chain, computerization and computerized monitoring of the movement of food grain up to the fair price shop, so that leakages and diversions can be stopped. This component consists of digitization of ration cards and other databases and computerization of the supply chain management right up to the fair price shop. The target dates for digitization of beneficiary database is March 2013, and for computerization of the supply chain is October 2013. It's a program that is underway, so we have just formally approved it. So that is the CCEA. There's one item in the Cabinet Committee on Infrastructure. Cabinet Committee on Infrastructure approved the Model Tripartite Agreement for the Infrastructure Debt Funds, IDF. This was an announcement made by the Finance Minister in the last budget. We have completed the exercise. The Model Tripartite Agreement has been finalized in consultation with RBI and other stakeholders. This has been approved by the Cabinet. Now we hope that IDFs will come into being. The aim is to accelerate and enhance flow of long-term projects in the country. They will also act as a catalyst to channelize domestic savings. IDFs would provide a vehicle for refinancing the existing debt of infrastructure projects. Now, typically, infrastructure projects are initially funded by banks or a consortium of banks. Infrastructure projects require long-term funding, 20 years, 25 years. Bank funding cannot be for a horizon beyond 5 to 7 years. There's a felt need for long-term infrastructure funding. Now, these IDFs, after the project has been completed, 1 year after commencement date, the IDFs will step in and take over the debt of the banks up to 85%. IDFs will provide the long-term fund for the remainder of the life of the project. This frees up bank funds for further lending. So this will mean new funds will flow into infrastructure, bank funds will be released, and therefore we hope that more debt funds will be available for infrastructure projects. Now, the tripartite agreement has been finalized after extensive consultations with stakeholders, including the RBI and the banks. IDFs will ideally be a society or a company, but they will also be registered as an NBFC and therefore will be regulated by the RBI. If it is a trust, it will be regulated under the mutual fund regulations of SEBI. Anything else? And just a moment. Anything else? We're covered. Yeah, that's only roads. All three are covered? CCEA? No. Okay.
Just a moment. Please wait for me to call you. We'll cover everybody. Yes.
So you said that the FDI cap in pensions will follow the FDI cap in insurance subject to Parliament.
That's the act today.
That's what also the standing committee had recommended, albeit they had said that you should cap it at 26%. Is there in any way the government thinking that perhaps they need to bring down the FDI cap in insurance to about 26%, and that could be thought of as a compromise mechanism to get because you said that you have handed over the bill, the amendments to the leaders of the House.
I didn't say that. I said I've handed over a list of bills which deserve to be passed. You're putting words. Official amendments have been approved only today. We will now discuss the official amendments with the principal parties. I handed over a list of bills that deserve to be passed.
But do you think that it would be brought down to 26% on the floor of the House as a compromise formula to get the requisite numbers?
Depends on what you support. If I have your support.
So these decisions that you've taken will need parliamentary approval. You obviously don't have the numbers, at least in the Rajya Sabha. Where are you going to get the numbers? Do you expect the BJP to support you? Because some of your own allies are not very keen on supporting this.
Well, I don't think we should jump to conclusions at this stage. Legislation making in a parliament where the government does not have an absolute majority is a process of discussion and negotiations. Bills have been passed. Many bills have been passed in Parliament after discussions and negotiations with the opposition parties, especially the principal opposition party. But I don't think we should start on the premise that there will not be a consensus or will not be an agreement on the floor of the House. As I said, we will reach out to the opposition parties, especially the principal opposition party. The principal opposition party is on record that it supports reforms. The standing committee is chaired by a distinguished member of the principal opposition party, and the standing committee has recommended these bills, of course, with certain recommendations to amend. We have accepted the bulk of the recommendations. Therefore, I am optimistic that we will be able to win the support of all sections of the House, especially the principal opposition party. I also take note of the President of the BJP statement that while they may oppose FDI in multi-brand retail, they support FDI in many other areas.
Mr. Naik, please, you had a question?
What about the National Investment Board? There was a proposal.
That didn't come up today. The note has been circulated to the ministries. We have given them a week to give their comments, and it was indicated to me that it will probably come up the next meeting of the cabinet.
Just a clarification, when we say 14% foreign investment in insurance, are there sub-caps within that? For example, X percentage for FDI and Y percentage for FIIs, both, resulting in a 49% foreign investment?
See, the section remains intact. All that we are doing is substituting the number 49% where the number 26% occurs. So the existing regime is the same. It is just that the cap is being raised from 26% to 49%. Anyway, we could have a more detailed briefing in the DFS tomorrow if you wish.
Sir,
it's 8:05.
If I add to this, sir, you said that foreign equity investment.
I said we can have a detailed briefing if you wish tomorrow. I think your viewers will lose interest if you continue for too long.
Shahid, you had a question? Yes.
We are substituting 26% by the number 49% in the Act.
Please make your question brief.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir, this side, on your right, on the left, on your right, sorry.
Yes, yes.
Sir, are you going to bring it in the winter session, pension, insurance and company bill? And is there any possibility of promulgating an ordinance in regard to these bills?
I can't say. All I'm saying is official amendments have been approved today, and we hope that the bills will pass in the winter session. But the timetable, etc., has to be worked out with the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, the whips, etc., etc.
Yes, Parag.
Yeah, Mr. Chidambaram, sir.
Yes.
Can you clarify and elaborate once again, so why you have decided to link FDI cap in pensions with that of insurance?
No, that has always been the structure of the bill. That whatever cap is put in the insurance will also apply to pension. That has always been the structure, and it's not unusual, because insurance, pension are all long-term savings and long-term funds. So whatever cap is for insurance will apply for pension. In fact, many insurance policies ultimately end up with an annuity so that pension can be paid. Annuity is another word for pension. And many pension products are designed in such a manner. So insurance and pension are literally go together in terms of overall policy approaches.
Do you think that the decisions taken today with regard to pension and insurance will boost market sentiment as has been anticipated?
Well, I don't make the market, or we don't intend to make the market. We take decisions that are necessary to be taken. How the market will react, we'll know when the market opens tomorrow.
Yes, please.
Sir, कल गुजरात के election dates announced है, उसको ध्यान में रखते हुए पार्लियामेंट की लीड से भी राय बनी है सर?
Those are not subjects which we discussed today.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So over the last few weeks, we've seen more reforms than we've seen in the last few years.
How many years? All your years?
So one, what is next on the agenda? And two, Are you happy in retrospect with the TMC's exit, because has it made reforms easier?
There are no political questions in this platform. This is confined to briefing you on what happened in the cabinet, the CCEA and the CCI. So I will not answer any political questions.
Sir, to your right. Left.
The rupee is stabilizing. I think it's stabilizing.
Sir, in the Competition Act, whether insurance companies will be also included, because in case, like you said, that failing bank will not...
Please keep your mic a little further away.
Sir, ailing bank will not come under the Competition Act if there is a merger between an ailing bank and another.
Yeah, that's right.
Will the same be true for insurance companies, or...
Yeah. See, voluntary mergers will come under the Competition Act. Involuntary, mandated mergers, amalgamations, mandated by the RBI in the case of banks, mandated by the IRDA in case of insurance companies, will not become... We are asking for an exemption. It will be under the Act, but we will ask for an exemption for that category. And the power is there in the Act to provide exemption. This is Section 45 of the Banking Act, and it is Section 37A of the Insurance Act, where it's involuntary mandated merger led by the regulator.
So for all sectors, insurance?
No, banking and insurance only. If there is any other sector which requires any other exemption,
Involuntary?
I don't know. How can there be an involuntary one in an unregulated sector? Anyway, we'll see. I think you're just going far too ahead. These are two cases where the Act already provides for involuntary amalgamation. Therefore, we have said that involuntary amalgamation should be exempted. The power is there in the Act to exempt those involuntary mergers, but it has to be exercised on a case-by-case basis.
Sir, you talked about in your opening statement about the cabinet decision on increasing it to 49% based on the fact that the IRDA chairman had has been stating it's required for the sector.
Not based on the fact. This is our judgment. All I pointed out is the regulator also strongly believes that 49% would be the appropriate limit.
Subsequent to that, you have the standing committee unanimous decision, which included even Congress members, which wanted it to be capped at 26%. And now on both counts, for both in the pension as well as in insurance, you're increasing it to 49%. Do you believe there is a room for maneuverability, or is it a judgment that you have taken along with the IRDA and that there is no, and that you all will stick to that position of 49%?
I said at the beginning that legislation, the process of making laws, is a process of negotiations, discussions, and trying to find a consensus. We are fully aware of the recommendation made by the standing committee. We respect that recommendation. At the same time, taking note of the objective situation, we have come to a conclusion. Obviously, we need to sit and talk. So when we sit and talk, and then we reach a decision, we will communicate it to you.
Mr. Minister,
Last question, please.
here.
Last question.
No,
We will sit and talk, I said.
No, we learned that the MK and NCP ministers were not present in the meeting. Are they supporting these measures the government has taken today's meeting?
Why should I assume that they are not supportive? Some ministers are absent for a variety of reasons. I understand Sri Sharad Pawar is out of the country. I'm not sure. So why should I assume to the contrary? Cabinet is the meeting of the cabinet. Okay. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Please organize a briefing tomorrow at